And we are live with Echo Base Network on Into the Fringe, something I thought would never happen.
Hail, guys. Glad to be here.
Very glad to be here, my friend.
Glad you guys are here. I had some technical difficulties. My computer fell into the depths of hell. But
it happens to all of us. I mean, Coach can tell you, it seems like I'm having something going wrong with my crap all the time, hence why there's only an avatar of me right now, because I'm still having
is
problems.
that what it is? I thought you had some kind of a vanity thing going on.
No, I did so I thought my cable went out, or I thought my camera went out, and then I started troubleshooting and messing with it, and it seems to be the cable. So I got a new one. I got a new one coming this week. So
your picture looks good, Nick, and I'm here in the grid running things. You know?
Yes, with Neo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was not the one.
Well, you know, this is a Tron Legacy background, so I'm with Kevin Flint.
Okay, cool. Well, you're hanging with Clue and what was Michael Sheen's character's name? You know, the really flamboyant David Bowie kind of character.
I
gotcha, didn't I?
Oh, I'm trying.
It's
on the tip of my tongue.
I don't know either, but he stole the show. In my opinion, Michael Sheen, first of all, he's always good. But in Tron Legacy, he was just, you know.
Oh, that is bugging me.
Yeah, no, look it up. Absolutely. We've got a little time.
Hester?
Castor?
Yeah,
Castor.
That's right.
Oh, that was killing me.
One off from Jester.
Yeah, that's actually what was in my head. Jester.
Right. Okay. I've been waiting for this for a long time, guys, so I am really psyched. As a matter of fact, I'm so psyched, I forgot to put on these cheap, cheesy movie 3D sunglasses that help block the glare from my screen, which is why I use it. Not to be like really cool looking or anything, but hey, it doesn't hurt, you know.
Hey, it looks good.
Looks good.
So I am going to go ahead and let you guys roll with the paranormal experiences that you guys have had. Before I do, I wanted to ask you guys individually. Nick, have you had paranormal experiences? I mean, obviously with Coach, but also without Coach, since you're more limited on time.
So not anything that is concrete is being something paranormal. It could just be it could just have been just a random weird coincidence. But there was one time when I was at my parents' house and I was going to sleep and I was laying there and I just got this weird feeling that something was in the room. And I normally don't ever feel like that. And I'm like, why does it feel so weird? Like, like something's in this room. And I started to get freaked out a little bit because the feeling I had, and which was completely,
I know it well,
outside of being a normal sense of feeling when I'm just get in the bed and go to sleep. I normally just get in the bed, close my eyes, and I just go to sleep. But I was laying there and it just this overwhelming weird feeling that something was in the room. Then I started hearing these weird noises, or well, before that, I started praying. For those of you who don't know, me and Coach are believers. And
that's what you're supposed to do, you know. The power of Christ compels you, right?
Yep, exactly. So I started praying, and when I started praying, I started hearing these weird noises that sound like they're coming from right outside my window. Like there are weird noises that I've never heard before, like this, like kind of.
So obviously, I'm going to ask you to try and describe them.
Yeah, it was. I can't really describe it. It was sort of like a screeching, like almost like a screeching / whining sound. And then I really started getting freaked out.
That's always helpful to try and go to bed.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is that noise? And so I just
I got up and I threw past the curtains and
yeah. So I kept just praying, and the sound just kept getting louder and louder. And so my room, it was right by the front door of the house because my
if
room
this ends up being a cat stuck in a tree, I'm going to be very disappointed.
I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
But the my room was right by the front door of the house because my room was converted from a dining room at my parents' house, and so I opened the door to see what it was, and it was a complete all white cat standing in my yard in between the house and me, and a complete black cat on the other side. And I've never seen these cats in the neighborhood ever before in my entire life. So it was just really weird. Again, not something that I know if it had anything to do with anything paranormal, but it was super weird. But
so
then
there was a white cat and a black cat?
yeah, complete white cat and a complete black cat. And like I said, I never have seen these cats or these animals in the neighborhood ever. And I'd been there for, at that point in time, at least 10 years.
And did you see them again after that?
Nope, never saw them again.
Because I am rather immersed in the paranormal and folklore and all kinds of stuff, and I've never heard of anything like that. Coach, have you heard of anything like that? I mean, other than from Nick?
Yeah.
Really?
For sure.
Do tell.
So are you wanting one of my experiences without Nick?
Just what you've heard that he described.
He's told me about the black cat and the white cat thing, and I'll tell you what.
What it reminds me of is the angel on one shoulder and the demon on the other shoulder.
Well, and I remember when I actually remember when this happened, I believe. If it happened before I met Nick, it didn't happen long before I met him.
No, it was definitely after, because I was in high school. We were both in high school.
So I remember when it happened then.
So you probably heard it the next day or that night.
Yeah, absolutely. But see, the thing is like the story never changes. It's exactly the same.
And that's a sign that it's not something that's being confabulated.
Exactly. And that's exactly how the story that we share that happened to both of us. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same thing. I've got a story or two that was just me. It's always the same because these are the facts of what happened. So yeah, I think that the story that Nick is telling you, I'm a big believer that there is a spiritual world all around us. We can't see it, but just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it's not real.
Sure.
And it is certainly there. And at times it reveals itself or by some way or another, whether that means they revealed themselves to us or God had a hand in opening your eyes for a moment. And I'm going to tell you what, Cardinal Sin, I am actually thankful that I can't see everything going on.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Because I think it was
all insane.
Yeah, it'd be too much. It'd be too much.
Even if it were just, more than the visible light spectrum, if we could see X-rays and infrared and ultraviolet, that would still drive us insane. Mm-hmm. But no, I hear what you're saying. Okay. So let's move through the ones that you guys had together, because I know Nick's got to go. So and then maybe Coach, if you can hang around a little bit after that, you can give us your personal stories, and we'll get to those.
Okay. Well, Nick, I'll let you go with this.
So me and Eddie have talked about this story multiple times in the past, and there's only one instance of it where we remember things a little bit different. So I'm sure when I get to that point, he'll remember it the way that he remembers it. But
I'm going to jump in here already and disagree.
Right. Well, I haven't even told it yet. Well,
But
I might say it, and you might say, "Yeah,
No,
yeah,
But
that's
it's
exactly how I
but you're
remember
wrong.
it."
That's all there is to it.
See, but with what you're about to tell, because I know what you're thinking, and
That's how close you guys are. And for
Yeah.
the audience, you guys have been best friends since you were 12.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So with what you're thinking, Nick, it's not the fact that what was said; it was who said it.
Okay.
You with me? And we
yeah.
don't. It could have been either. But I'll let you go, and
Yeah. Yeah, I'll
We'll
kind of tell
jump
the
in and
story,
wrangle you as
and then
needed.
Coach can chime in on that part because I'm not 100% sure. I know what he's talking about, but I'll just tell the story. So,
Okay.
Me and Coach and one of my other good friends, Matt Harris, were going out to this place called Crybaby Hollow, which is here in Alabama, and it's just a old dirt road
That
in the
sounds
woods.
spooky all by itself.
Yeah, it's a dirt road out in the woods. The trees completely cover over top of the road, and so when you're driving down, it almost looks like you're driving through like a wooded cave. So it's
Like
really
a full canopy.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. They arch over the dirt road, and there's a bridge out there that the story is. Now, whether any of this is true is a complete another story. It could all be fabricated. But the legend is that there was a woman that threw her baby off of this bridge, and it's a very small bridge. Only one car can go across it at one time. And but she threw her baby and murdered her baby by throwing it off the bridge. And if you go there and like leave a piece of candy there or something, or a candy bar, and come back, then you'll see a bite's been taken out of it. Or if you sit on it, you'll hear a baby crying. I've never experienced either one of those things, but that's the legend. So anyways, we go out there and we're, just doing the scary, drive through and telling, scary stories and that sort of stuff. Well, Eddie's youth pastor at the time had a lot of those stories and experiences. And he didn't live far from where my parents lived. So we decided, hey, let's go over to his house and see if he'll kind of tell us some stories and stuff of some stuff that's happened, to him. And
I wonder if there's a way we can all be Nick.
Yeah. So we ended up driving over there, and he lives right across the street from an elementary school that I went to. And behind that elementary school is some woods. And another legend or myth of those woods is back in the 70s, there were some Satanists out there that ended up chopping off this woman's head and whatnot.
Well, that's not very nice.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be haunted woods, but again, I've never seen anything out there
that would corroborate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we go over there, and all of his lights are off at the house, and we're like, well, maybe he's there and he's just got the lights off. So we go up to the door to knock on the door and see if he's there. And across the street from him, of course, is the school, and there's a chain link fence there with a street light above it. And then on the other side of the chain link fence, there's some trees and stuff. And when we're standing there at the door, I get this weird, and I'm just telling it from my perspective at the time when I was there, of what was going on in my mind. But when I was standing there, I had this overwhelming feeling like something was behind us. And
like standing behind you?
Yeah, like standing behind us. And so I was sitting there, and we knocked, rang the doorbell again. And I was and in my mind, I'm like, it's just all in your head, just because we've been talking scary stories and was out at Crybaby Hollow. There's nothing to be scared of.
Don't turn around.
So I turned around just to prove to myself, hey, everything's fine. You're just freaking out for nothing. And across the street, on the other side of the chain link fence, underneath the street light, next to one of the the trees is a complete black outline of a person. So there's not like indentions in between, like the body and the arm. Or
is this what we would call a shadow person?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it's just the outline of a person. It's completely black, and I kind of squint my eyes and look, and then Coach and Eddie turn around. I don't know what they were thinking in their head.
I am Coach and Eddie.
Oh, I mean, Coach and Matt.
I was like, who's Eddie?
Yeah, Coach and Matt. I'm not used to calling Coach.
Okay, well, we all are, so that's why we were confused.
Yeah, I try to just stick to doing it on YouTube. But anyways,
we are on YouTube.
Yeah. But outside of YouTube, I just always call him Eddie. So, anyways, they both turn around also and are looking at what I'm looking at, and I point at it and I say, "Is that a person standing over there?" And when I said that, it shifted sideways, like either into the tree or behind the tree. But the tree was very slim, like I mean, if you stood directly behind it, yeah, you'd be able to see, both sides, the left and right side of someone's body if they were standing center right behind it.
Sure.
So it shifted sideways into the tree, and that's when we took off to the car, all three of us.
Now, when you say it shifted sideways into the tree, you couldn't see the part behind the other side of the tree where it would have been?
I know, not that I can remember.
So it literally shifted into the tree.
Yeah, it didn't I mean, it didn't sidestep. It just kind of slid sideways. And that's when we took off, and we got halfway down the street, and my buddy Matt was like, turn around, we got to see if it's still there. And I was like, no, I'm not turning around. Well, so I did end up turning around, and we drove by, fairly quickly, and of course there wasn't anything there.
Well, here's hoping it was a tree spirit.
Yeah.
Cardinal, I'm gonna have to I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay.
My foster children are about to leave, so I'll be right back.
Sure.
Yep. So that was so after that we ended up going back to my parents' house. We're completely freaked out. Coach, my buddy Matt ended up staying the night.
Did you tell your folks what you had seen?
Yeah. And
did they think that you guys were off your nut, or?
No. My dad is a big believer in the paranormal and a big Christian guy and stuff. So he completely believed our story.
Has he had his own paranormal experiences? Yes,
okay. He has. And while Coach is away, I'll tell you one that is pretty.
We won't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. I know I've told Coach this before, but so my dad, when he worked in Huntsville, he had one of his coworkers was a big Christian guy too, and at lunchtime they would go eat lunch together, have a quick Bible study, that sort of thing. But they're both musicians too.
Oh, cool.
So they were doing some conference down here in Birmingham at the time, and so while they were down here, they're like, "Hey, let's go check out this music store." And so they walk in to this music store, and this guy comes up to him as soon as they walk in. He wasn't a guy that worked there. He was just there as a customer. He came up to him and said, "You two are sons of the Most High." And my dad was like, "Oh, all right.
We don't smoke pot."
Yeah, and then after that, the guy kept looking at him like sort of like in hateful ways while they were in the store, and he came up to him, I guess, while they were in there and started talking about how great Satan was and all this other stuff. And
okay.
And so he was kind of like, all right, I think that guy might be like demon possessed or something. And so they ended up leaving that music store. And I know he's had there's one other story he told me, and he always said, what I'm about to tell you, don't ever do this. But he was in the Air Force, and he got injured during his basic training, and it was right at the end of basic training.
Mhm.
And basically the doctors told him, like, hey, there's not anything we can do. You're going to miss the rest of basic training. I can't remember what his injury or illness was or whatever. I can't remember, but they basically said, you're not going to be able to finish basic training. Like, you're going to have to you're going to have to heal up all that, and you're going to have to go through basic again.
And
so,
I feel a ... coming on.
Yeah. So my dad was super pissed off about that news. And he basically prayed and said, God, if you don't heal me and I'm not 100% in the morning, I will never believe in you ever again.
Whoa.
And the next morning,
that's almost, I grew up in a Jewish household, and there's a concept in Judaism called suing God. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's been a while since I talked about it. So anyway, back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So the next morning he was completely fine. The doctors had no explanation. He finished basic, and
into the Air Force he went.
Into the Air Force he went, and the rest was history. And he,
and this was obviously a significant injury of some kind.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they basically said he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, type deal. So, that was pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
But yeah, he, the Bible says not to ever tempt God, or into doing something or something like that, or get some sort of like ultimatum like that. So later on down the road, of course, he realized what he had done was wrong.
Right.
But
asked forgiveness.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So
was redeemed. Everyone's happy. It's a great story.
Yep.
It's the thing that I was trying to remember about suing God, I think, is an old Yiddish folk tale. I don't know if it's in the, you have to understand, on the Jewish side of the Bible, you've got the Old Testament, you've got the Talmud, that thing that Madonna studied. I don't remember.
I can't remember either.
The Kabbalah. That's it.
Okay.
And then there's, even more like stuff that you're not supposed to get into. The phrase "never suffer a witch to live" comes from the Old Testament. And they show you an example of, David. This is where Star Wars and the Bible come together, right? The Witch of Endor.
Yep.
So, the first thing that Saul admonishes David with is, what are you doing?
Right.
You're not supposed to consort with witches, and here I am, and he's like, well, I really need your advice. And he's like, well, you're really not supposed to be doing this. Right. And there was a TV, movie of the week or something like that Leonard Nimoy was in. He may have even played Saul. And I just remember that he was being admonished from beyond the grave by the person that he brought back from the grave using the Witch of Endor. So that's just sort of the Star Wars Bible connection that I can.
And Lucas pulled from all kinds of stuff, religious, occult, all that sort of stuff. I mean, he pulled from so much stuff when he was
Eastern, obviously Eastern religious thought or philosophy, I guess, because for them it's not so much a religion, I guess, as it is philosophy. Or maybe a better way to put it would be that we've we've adapted sort of philosophical parts of their religion. That's probably more accurate.
Yep. There's on another little bit of well, it's a little bit changing the subject, but in my mind, it's
Please.
on the same path of things. So I had a UFO experience just a couple weeks ago after one of our live streams.
Oh wow!
So it was several weeks ago. We just finished a live stream. I went out back to burn one, and when I was out back, I saw this. So back behind my house is Oak Mountain State Park. So it's all woods. Like they'll never build back there. It's just it's will always be woods.
Just wilderness.
Yep. And
that
so
sounds beautiful.
It is. And so back behind my house, often not far off in the distance, coming down out of the sky was these lights that you know how when a plane is coming in for a landing and the lights are kind of going off and on in a pattern to move forward, to kind of show the direction of the runway.
Right.
Well, these were doing that, but going sideways. And it was just coming down out of the sky and just coming straight down. And it was just
like that.
Yeah. And these row of lights were just flashing, going across whatever this thing was. And it was going down into the tree line. And it was fairly large. From the distance it was at, from what I could tell, at nighttime, it was at least the length of my backyard, which is probably, I don't know, 400 feet, maybe 500 feet. So it was pretty big, and the lights were pretty big on it. And I've not ever seen anything like no helicopter, nothing like that with lights this big flashing in that direction. It was one right after another. these lights were close. Very close.
And there's no Air Force base or anything back there.
Nothing like that.
There's no roads.
No airport. There's dirt roads.
Oh, okay.
No airports, no military, but nothing is back there. And it just went down. I went to grab my phone because when I saw it coming down, I'm like, what is that? That is just weird.
It's good that you thought to grab a photo, because a lot of the time when people are in those situations, they're just awestruck and they're just like,
that's how I was. So I went to grab my phone to start recording it. And right when I got it up and was pulling up the video, it went down below the tree line and I couldn't see it. So I didn't get any video or any picture of it. But it was very strange. But my own personal belief on UFOs, aliens, I don't really have explanation for the UFO phenomenon. Not really quite sure what it is. But I don't believe it's creatures from another planet. If you look at the alien abduction stuff, it's very similar to spiritual and demonic type cases. They're very close in their.
But if we're gonna really tackle this subject head on, I think that we have to agree that demons, you've heard the line from Star Trek V, what does God need with a spaceship? And by the same token, that was a horrible Shatner. Mr. Shatner, please don't sue me. But by the same token, demons don't really need a UFO, right?
Yeah, well, see, so my speculation of all that is, I believe that no, they don't need that stuff for traveling or anything like that. But I think that they use it as a deceptive, a deceptive measure to make people believe that there is other life out there. There's no God. So
let me break in and ask you this. Nick, do you believe that there is no life elsewhere in the universe?
No, I do not.
Coach?
I am on the flip side of the coin from Nick there. Just because it doesn't say in the Bible that there's not, does not mean that it's possible. So
Right.
I definitely see a possibility. Why would God? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying that I recognize the possibility
Sure.
that our sovereign creator could have made other places just like he made us.
And I remember, not that you guys are a Catholic or one particular denomination over another, but I remember the Vatican astronomer, and they have one of the best ground-based telescopes in the world, and they had. Boy, I don't remember.
Are you talking
how long
about the
it's
one
been
out in
now.
Arizona?
It might be, but one of their priests, I guess, had or no, it was the Pope. Well, he's a priest too, I suppose. But he had mentioned that if life exists on other planets, since the universe is infinite, or should I say the multiverse, depending on which theory, physics we're talking about, that he said that they would be God's children just as we are.
Yeah, and sort of like what Coach was saying, I'm not saying the possibility isn't possible that God created stuff, but
That's just your personal belief.
I've seen no evidence or anything that says that there is. So, I mean, yeah, the Bible doesn't say that there is.
Well, we're going to have to get you onto a sky watch, Nick, and watch some of these puppies come down.
Yeah, but what I was gonna what else I was gonna say about some of that is there's a lot of UFO and alien researchers out there that are Christian people that have talked and dealt with thousands of cases of these people that get these have these experiences of being abducted and all this sort of stuff. And once they came to be believers in Christ and that sort of thing, and when these things would show up and they would rebuke these beings in the name of Christ, they would be gone.
Yes, I've heard that too.
And so that's just another big reason why I think that they're not creatures from other planets and that sort of thing. And they don't seem to be friendly.
Some people report really positive experiences, but it's, I don't know, it's a difficult thing. I try to remain agnostic when it comes to that, because I know that people have very firmly held beliefs, across the spectrum. And like you said, I don't have proof. Well, actually, I have proof, but that doesn't mean you guys have proof. I have the luxury of knowing, so I don't have to believe or disbelieve. But it's a can of worms that once you get it open, I guess I'm going to shift metaphors here in the middle of a stream of consciousness. It's difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. Right. While we still have you, Nick, is there something that's happened to the two of you that you would want to mention before you have to go?
Just the story that I told, and Coach can kind of give his story and recount of what happened that night. But yeah, I'm about to have to bounce off here because I got a crap ton of stuff I've got to get to.
Well, hey, thank you so much, brother.
But I definitely want to come back. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I mean, I could go into so much more detail and pull up articles and cases, and I mean I could literally spend 2 hours talking about this stuff.
Great. We'll definitely have you guys back on.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, and Coach, I'll talk to you later, and we'll see you hopefully on the next show, Cardinal, soon.
Sounds good. May the force be with you.
I'll talk to you in a minute,
brother.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Then there
Now-
were two.
Now that he's gone,
Yeah. Now the real show begins.
that's right.
I just want to
So-
kind of counterpoint what Nick said. I
Mhm.
walk outside Cardinal Sin and you know, I do believe in a sovereign creator.
Mhm.
And when I walk outside and I look at the world around me. I look at what he has created and given us.
The magnificence of
I have to know that he created all of this. But to take that a step further, when I look up into the sky at night, why would I think that we're alone?
Mhm.
Look how much possibility there is out there. Why would a creator just create us right here and not? And I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm just saying it. And
Well,
so
and
I'm
also,
flip on
you
Nick.
know,
I'm like, I haven't seen
degree,
anything to disprove.
God is ineffable, right? So we may not know his reasons or you know, I think it's reductive to say that God works in mysterious ways, but that's essentially where I'm headed. And not only did it give me a little bit of I guess room to maneuver when I heard about the Vatican saying that, you know, if there's other life in the universe, that they would be God's children as we all are.
Mhm.
But there's so much history and research, and you know, I'm one of those guys that, you know, when I was a kid and I'd first learned to read, for some reason I gravitated toward the paranormal, and I read up on aliens and Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and, you know, everything. And the one thing that I found that really, you know, stuck with me, aside from a little bit of Bigfoot, because I'm kind of a Bigfoot nerd, was UFOs, and that the study of ufology, for the, you know, lack of a better term, you know, people have been seeing things for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And only, you know, since Whitley Strieber wrote Communion, have we all been seeing, you know, the grays that all sort of fall into the same category of descriptor, where, you know, whereas before that we saw all different, you know, shapes and sizes of craft and all different, you know, kinds of occupants, I guess would be the word for them. And so I hesitate to, you know, work off of just the idea that, looking at it from just a religious perspective, although I would fight to the death for anybody's, you know, choice to do so. For me, it just seems like it's, you know, a much more grandiose, like you were saying, you look up at night and there's stars everywhere. And you're familiar with the Drake equation, right?
Mm.
Oh gosh, well, here I've gone and put myself on the spot. So Frank Drake was the sort of father of radio telescopes, radio telescopy. And they learned, you know, we have learned so much more about different kinds of bodies in space other than stars from radio telescopy, magnetars, black holes, etc. And the famous Drake equation basically goes from the number of stars in the observable universe, the number of planets around all of those stars, and, you know, there's times through all of these different variables, and the number of inhabited or I'm jumping ahead of myself, the number of worlds circling those stars that could have the right conditions for life. They're in the Goldilocks zone. They're not frozen. They're not too hot. They have liquid water, oxygen, etc. Life as we know it, which I think is even changing on a regular basis anyway. But eventually, when you get to the end of the equation, more or less, and that's a pretty big more or less, we have the number of inhabited worlds in our galaxy. And that number went way up when we started using things like the Hubble telescope and other, even visual telescopes, when we started finding Earth-like planets around stars, light years and light years away.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, if anything, I think the chances of that have gone way up since Frank Drake, who's still with us after all this time, since he posited that equation, which I've done a really horrible job of explaining. But it's not really the math that's important; it's the idea.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
I'm digging that.
I think that just personally, I'm so intrigued by the prospect of how many civilizations there might be out there, and what if one of them is 1,000 years in advance of us?
Mm-hmm.
If you took an iPhone 100 years into the past, or say 1,000 years into the past, you'd be burned at the stake for a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you wouldn't have any cell service, but other than that, and so what if they're 10,000 years in advance of us? We went from the biplane to the space shuttle in 75 years, and it seems like, when you follow Moore's law anyway, every 18 months, your computing power gets, you double your computing power, and the size that a processor takes is halved, And so if we sort of extrapolate that toward all technology in general, you can see kind of where that leads us. But anyway, I'm here to listen to your stories. So please do take that ball and run with it.
Well, I've got a couple that I know that Nick shared the story that when we were kids, teenagers, and all that, I missed the end of it, but just knowing him and knowing what he said, that night that happened.
And this is the one about the UFO coming down below the tree
no,
line?
this is the one. This
The
is
shadow-
the one of the
shadow
shadow.
being?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's exactly the way that Nick remembers it, but I got a couple things that might fill in some gaps.
Okay.
So we were riding around that night, going to various places, and we kind of freaked each other out, telling
And that was
stories.
kind of the idea, right?
Yeah.
You were trying to freak each other. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we weren't really trying to. We were just sharing these stories that we have heard, that we have read. And lo and behold, before you know it, we're like getting nervous. We're like getting
I see.
scared.
Okay. So you open the door and you stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares back.
So I made the suggestion, let's go to my youth pastor's house.
Mm-hmm.
And he will make us feel better, whatever.
Right.
I was 15, and our friend Matt was 15, and Nick had just turned 16. So Nick was driving around, and we head over to my youth pastor's house. And when we get there, we had that moment where we walked up to his door, and Nick said that he said, I feel like somebody's here. I feel like somebody's watching us.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was me that said that. It could have been Nick. I know that one of us said it, And we both kind of looked at each other. Our friend Matt looked at us. And the way I remember it is that it's just like a movie. We all turned around at kind of the same time and looked. And there it was, Cardinal Sin, the shape of a man sitting there looking right at us.
And it was right underneath a street lamp.
Yes. Well lit, right in the road. And I'll tell you, man, the hair on my body raised. And we were frozen in fear.
I do have a quick question I want to jump in with, if I may.
Sure.
Do you, and this is just out of sheer curiosity on my part, do you get the impression that if it hadn't been underneath the street lamp, you wouldn't have seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I do. It would have been much harder to see. It made itself obvious to us.
Right.
So we are frozen, it felt like an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Probably mere seconds. And what happened is we all ran to the car. Now I jump ahead. We're looking at it. And then, like Nick said, it literally just shifts to the side and it's gone.
Like
nothing
a portal.
moved. There was no cars. There wasn't anything in the sky. This is 9 o'clock at night, a quiet street.
Just like there's a portal behind that tree. Just,
I guess, man. Like it moved and it was gone. And when that happened, we ran to I ran like I was a world-class sprinter.
I bet you did.
We got in the car, and I'll tell you, like, we did circle around. Our friend was like, "Go back." Nick literally went 100 miles per hour down this road, like we would have seen anything
right
on this drive by the second time, anyways.
Yeah.
But what we did, like when we got out of the neighborhood, I said, "Man, take me home." And he was like,
"I'm done."
Okay. So he took me home. We went inside my parents' house. I woke my mom up and made her come out to the living room, and we told her. Now, when I was 15 years old, Nick's house was my second house. And every weekend, that's where I stayed. I can imagine
you guys playing video games together.
Yeah. Sneaking out, video games, watching Star Wars, whatever. You name it, we did it. So I was so freaked out, I didn't want to stay. And that was not like me, because I was at his house staying every moment I could, because that was my other family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my siblings were all grown and gone. It was just me at the house with my parents. My parents were older. So when the weekend got here, I was going to stay with Nick.
Right.
And not that night. Now, as I got a little bit older, I realized, for me, I had it at this time too. I had an infatuation with the occult.
You did.
Now, I wasn't like a worshiper or anything like that, but I really enjoyed studying the occult. And
I was going to actually ask you, guys, the both of you, if you had ever found yourselves playing around with a Ouija board.
Never.
Okay.
Never. But I've read about a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I've read about demon possession and epilepsy and how the two could be linked. And I've read many books.
Levitate, spin around.
I've read many. I've read a lot of books about the occult. I've read a little bit of the Satanic Bible. I can quote some of the scripture in that.
Can't.
I wish that I couldn't, but that's how fascinated I was.
It got passed around at my high school a lot. Everybody was into it when I was in high school.
Well, I studied the occult a lot as a Christian believer. Mm-hmm. I was really interested.
It does have a certain cachet, you know.
So one of the things that I learned in my reading was that there are, if you believe in fallen angels, if you believe in demons or whatever you want to call them, they have different ranks. They have different jobs. And there are also things that you can do to attract them. They are attracted to pentagrams. They are attracted to certain music. They are
Sure.
attracted to things that have some type of demonic connection to it.
You know, it's
Well,
funny you mentioned that, because when I was little, I went up to the campus library here at KU, and for some reason I wanted to know more about demonology, and so I used their primitive computer system. It was built specifically for the KU library, and looked up these books, and I went up there, and there were all these huge, massive tomes that were written in German, and I got 3.5 years of German under my belt, and not specifically so that I could learn all of the ins and outs of demonology. My family was Jewish, and so when I had to take a language in junior high school, I thought to myself, well, there's a lot more chance that I'll speak Spanish than German, just based on where I live. I live in Kansas, and they were like, no, you're studying German, just because of the cultural, ramifications growing up Jewish. And that stood me in pretty good stead. Anyway, when I went back after 3.5 years of German, and I looked at these demonology books, I still couldn't read them. They were in Old High German, which is as different a language, from German as English is,
Right.
So I didn't mean to hijack your story. I
Oh,
was
no, that's okay.
the fascination is cross-cultural.
Well, one of the things that I realized in my studying when I was reading about how there are things that you could do to attract and draw them to you.
The principalities, yes.
That's exactly right. So, and one of those things is fear. If you are fearful of it, truly fearful, then it draws them. And the Bible commands us that the only thing that we should fear is the Lord himself.
That's where the phrase God-fearing man comes from.
So if you, as a believer in Christ, fear something that is not him, then that could be interpreted as sinful. I don't know. That's not for me to decide.
Right.
But back to the study, that's what I think that we did that night. I do believe in what I read about the whole fear aspect drawing them.
There's an invitation involved.
I think that's what we did.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And we freaked each other out, and we all saw what we saw. And I know that some people hear this story and they're like, oh, it happened. There was a solid black figure of a man in the middle of the street standing there looking at us for a solid 10 to 15 seconds, and it moved and it was gone. And
it sounds like he wanted to be seen by you.
Yeah. Well, see, so let me segue to another story.
Okay.
Around this same time, I when I was 15 years old, I took on the call to preach. And the night of my very first sermon at church, my mother was a church secretary, and she had a key to a building that our church property owned, but it was a building not in the main church. My mother didn't have a key to the main church office, so she couldn't get me in the main church, but she could get me inside what we called the fellowship hall, a little side
Is this like
building.
an outbuilding? Yeah.
Kind of. So we would go over there, and that's where we would have meals together as a church family and all this kind of stuff. Well, I was at home, like, nervous, ready to preach, and super excited. I couldn't stay home. It was driving me crazy. So I asked my mother that night if she would go ahead and take me up there and drop me off. I let me in the fellowship hall, and I'm going to stay there, and I'm going to review my notes, and I'm going to read my Bible, and I'm going to get ready. My mom was like, okay. So we got in the car, and Mom dropped me off, and I was the only person on our church property.
Mhm.
So I go inside the fellowship hall.
That's got to be a little eerie in
It
and
is.
of itself.
I didn't realize that at the time.
Mhm.
It's probably the first time I'd ever been in a church building by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm walking down this hallway and I go into the kitchen area. They got this countertop, this bar countertop. Put my Bible down, got my notes. I start reading it. And as I'm standing there, Cardinal Sin, I hear all around me what sounded like a bunch of metal racket. Like it just, I would imagine
An extremely busy Italian kitchen.
gears grinding, pans banging.
Uh-huh.
Nothing
Poltergeist activity. Yeah.
nothing was moving.
Mhm.
Nothing. And then there I was again, frozen, looking like what is happening.
Yeah.
And this isn't like an air conditioner unit. This isn't
Yeah.
a part of the building. This noise is right here on me,
Mhm.
all around me.
Wow, you
And
must have been so scared.
so I am standing there, froze. And when the noise died, when the noise went away, immediately after the noise stopped, I'm giving myself chill bumps thinking about it right now. I don't think about this too much.
Mhm.
I heard what sounded like 100 people laughing at me
Wow.
in a high pitch, evil laughter.
Hmm.
And this went on for a good 10 seconds. I closed my Bible and I didn't run. I walked out and shut the door behind me.
Didn't show the fear.
I did not. And when I walked out and shut the door, a car was pulling into our church parking lot. It was our head deacon who
Mhm.
was there to unlock the church. He and I were the only two people on campus. I did not tell anyone that night. What I came to realize after this happened, I talked to my parents when I got home. And I went ahead that night and I preached my sermon. It lasted a whole 10 or 15 minutes, maybe.
Right.
And I got home and my dad was like, well, son, I'll tell you what. He said, that was probably the evil one or Satan or demonic spirits. They were trying to scare you out of doing what God wanted you to do.
Yeah, they were testing you.
And I thought, wow, that is very wise, and he's probably right.
Mhm.
Now, that's pretty much the end of that story. I did go ahead and preach that night, and it was, that's what it was. Now, when I was born and was in my crib, my dad, we all, everybody's got their own story about their parents. My father passed away. It's been 5 years ago now. The whole time I was alive, my dad was alive. I don't know this for a fact, but I would vouch he never lied to me,
Mhm.
ever. My dad just didn't lie. I never knew of my dad to even skirt not being truthful.
Not
He
even a
was-
white lie.
No, if you asked him a question that he felt like he needed to lie about, he just wouldn't answer you.
Mhm.
He's like, I'm not going to talk about that. And many times when he would do that, you got your answer,
Well, yeah.
but he would not lie about anything. My dad was a great, great man. And my dad told me that when I was a newborn baby,
Mhm.
he and my mother were asleep in the middle of the night, and my dad woke up to a voice that was right in his ear, and the voice said, "Rise up and go get your son." And my dad got out of bed and walked into my room, and my dad said there was a solid black figure of a man standing right over my crib. And my dad scooped me up and took me back to his bed, and I slept I slept the rest of the night there. And I'll believe that story until the day I die,
Sure.
because my dad told me. My dad told me another story, Cardinal Sin, that was really cool. My dad, later on in his life, started walking a lot for his heart. My dad had the 8th heart attack killed my dad.
Oh my gosh.
So he had to start. He was a police officer for 27 years, high stress job. So my dad is out walking one winter. I'm probably 21, 22, home for the holidays. My dad's walking, and dad's getting older at this time. If I was 22, then he was probably 57. So
that's almost as big a difference as between me and my dad.
yeah. So my dad was walking, and in the winter we had snow, and when my dad got home, he said, "Son, I got to tell you something that just happened." And I said, "What?" He said, "I was walking down the street, headed back home. I had walked the block, and he said, I saw this little old man walking on the other side of the road. And he said, I spoke to the man. He said, the man was pitiful looking. He said, I spoke to the man and said, how are you doing, sir? And the man's hands were shaking outside in the snow.
Yeah.
And my dad
From
noticed
cold.
it from the cold.
Yeah.
And my dad had on gloves and a hat and all this stuff. And the man asked my dad, actually, no, he didn't ask. He said, it's really cold out. And my dad walked over to him and gave this man his gloves. My dad took the gloves off of his hands and gave them to this stranger in the street. And my dad said something to the effect of, God wanted me to give you these.
Yeah.
Something like that. And my dad said, he said, son, the man thanked me. And we both kept walking away from each other. He said, I probably took 20 more steps and I thought about it and I turned around and the man was gone.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
And I'm like, wow.
And the gloves?
Gone.
Yeah.
All of it gone.
And there was nowhere he could have gone.
Nowhere he could have gone.
Wow. That's crazy. While you were away, and Nick and I were talking behind your back.
Oh boy.
He told me that his dad had an interest in the paranormal as well. And
big time. His dad taught me a lot. His dad is an amateur expert in all things occult and paranormal.
Yeah. I started to wonder, and this is, you may agree or disagree, the both of you may have different viewpoints, but I was just thinking at that point, I wonder if these guys are sensitives like I am, because all my life I've had strange paranormal occurrences. I did not see a UFO until, what you would call a flying saucer. There's plenty of stuff that I couldn't identify that was flying around, but even though UFOs are the things that stuck with me, I've had, I've seen ghosts. I've, you name it. I've, other than, the shadow people and the black-eyed children and stuff like that. And some of that I think is just urban myth, urban legend. And a lot of it is widely reported. I mean, even the black-eyed children thing is widely reported. And I think that to a degree, and you may disagree with this, Nick may disagree with this, I don't know, but I think to a degree, all people can, whether they are or not, they can see this stuff that's more esoteric. And, when I was like too young to be able to write correctly, I wrote phantom on my closet, except I spelled it Fanav. And I just, every kid that has a closet, at some point has fear that something's going to come out of that closet.
Oh yeah.
If they don't, there's something wrong with them. And, as I said before, I just consumed as much as a small child, as much from the library as I could about the paranormal, and then a lot of that, I don't remember the saying about, I no longer think of childish things and I put away the childish things. But the only thing that really stuck with me, aside from Little Bigfoot, was the UFOs. But I definitely think as some of us have more talent in basketball, as a really crude example, I think some of us are born with, more sensitivity to, the occult. And I wondered if maybe that was the case with Nick and maybe with you. What do you think?
I definitely think that could be a gift. I definitely think that exists. I know that one big thing in Christianity is the belief in spiritual gifts. God and the Almighty could give somebody that doesn't believe in Jesus.
Well, there was a great example is Edgar Casey. You've heard of him, right?
I haven't.
Really?
I don't think so.
Edgar Casey was.
I like his name though.
Yeah, he's he was a guy that was born with a profundity of these gifts. He would go into a trance, and then when he woke up or when he was done, he would have the answer to any question. I think that he did some healings as well. But this was one of the first books that I read, in my sort of study of the paranormal.
Right.
And he famously, on the astral plane, went to Jupiter, correctly counted the number of moons, saw the great red spot, etc. And then when he got back, he either told the person that was asking the question and or had his secretary write it down, because I think his secretary wrote down a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when the Voyager spacecraft got there, he was dead, but he was correct, but he was first and foremost a Christian, and I think a healer, if memory serves me correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just like any other muscle, I think these are things that one can practice.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that myself.
I think they would call it, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Christian theologians would refer to it as the spiritual gift of discernment, to being able to discern between good and evil and having that awareness of the spiritual realm around you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have that or not. I may have. I also believe that God could give me more than one. I may have one that's I have. I think that I have. God has blessed me with the.
You've got the basketball genes, man, for sure. He gifted you with that.
Yeah. How do you know that?
Well, I live in Lawrence. That's where the Kansas basketball program is.
Well, we came from a basketball family. Yeah, my brother was a highly successful coach. My dad was a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
But where was I going?
My Christopher Walken just.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
I lost you.
Oh gosh, I don't remember where I was going.
I said that you had the basketball genes.
Yeah. I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
Well, that happens a lot to me. So it should happen to you at least once in a while. But I was just saying that, in Lawrence, where the University of Kansas is, don't take this the wrong way because it's just an expression, but they say that basketball isn't a sport, it's a religion.
Yeah.
And, the storied history of KU basketball, James Naismith, the inventor of the game, was a coach here. Fogg Allen was a coach here. They're both buried out at Oak Hill Cemetery.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wilt Chamberlain. Yep. I mean, and it just goes on and on and on.
I was on a plane with Danny Manning one time.
You know what? I went to high school with Danny Manning.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
And I was about 6'3.5" when I was in high school. And due to my back and, disc problems and stuff, I'm no longer as tall as I once was. But when, we had an L-shaped high school, so we had 4 minutes to potentially get from one side all the way to the other. So everybody was, getting to their locker and changing their books and notebooks and really running when they shouldn't have been. But whenever I ran into somebody at that L, I was used to looking straight ahead and saying, "Oh, I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry." And there was this time when I went whomp, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And it was Danny Manning, and he said, "It's okay, little guy."
Yeah, he's 6'9".
And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'm 6'3.5". Nobody calls me little guy, But yeah, I mean, he was the sweetest, nicest guy I've ever met. Wonderful guy. So it
That's
was
awesome,
really,
man. How small world. That's crazy.
yeah. And it was a shame what happened to him. He was plagued with injuries and, went to the Clippers and here and there and everywhere. And I thought it was really cool when he returned to be an assistant coach here.
There's a lot of people that would get on a plane and see a big, tall guy like that and not know who that is. But, boy, I knew who it was. I looked at my wife. I said, "That is Danny Manning." And she said, "Who's that?" I said, "1988 national champion, Kansas University."
Us. Yep, that's us.
I'm an Indiana fan. I was a big Bob Knight fan.
Yeah, well, that's, another storied basketball program.
Yeah.
And there are a few. I watched us climb from like a 30-point deficit to beat Kentucky the other day. And it was just the scrappiest KU team I've ever seen. I know you know who Paul Pierce is.
Oh, yeah.
When he was here at KU, I despised him. And here's why. The times that KU basketball works well, it's a well-oiled machine. Everybody does the drills. Everybody knows, get the ball to whoever's open, do your screens, screen your guy out, post up, and just be in the right place at the right time. And if you're not, feed whoever is, right? Well, Paul Pierce was a ball hog. And when he was here, it was always get the basketball to Paul Pierce for the 2 years or however long he was here. Man, I could not wait to get rid of that guy because we had season tickets on the half court line, like one balcony up, and they were just the best seats in the house. And Allen Fieldhouse is a big house, and there are a lot of good seats, but these were like the seats to have. And to the degree that my dad told me once, if I ever hear that you sell the tickets, you'll never go to another basketball. and I never did. But I remember growing up, I have an older brother and an older sister, and my brother is almost 10 years older than I am. So when I was 6, he was 16. Mm-hmm. And I remember him staying home with a broken ankle, I think, from playing football. And my 6-year-old brain had just decided, well, football's stupid, because that happened. And, back in the day, I'm really going to date myself here. Well, I guess since I went to high school with Danny Manning, I guess I already have. But I just hated sports of all kinds. We had a black and white TV, and for instance, watching tennis was just unbearable. Watching golf was unbearable because you didn't have these huge TVs like we do now. This was just like a little 19 or 27 inch black and white TV, and I couldn't see the interest, and then when that happened to my brother, even more so, and I just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And then I went to basketball camp for 4 years in a row at KU. And that's when it became part of my bloodstream,
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning for me, it was like getting dragged to these basketball games, little did I know, what I had. And I was there actually the night because they had invited Wilt Chamberlain to come in and come back and retire his jersey, like 10 times. And he just never did. And then one night he did. And I don't think it was very long after that he passed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really special occasion. I don't know why he passed up on that as many times as he did, but we retire a lot of jerseys here, and there's a lot of, especially in the older years, a lot of Final Fours and championship flags and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there seemed to be sort of a long dry spell, and Coach Naismith went, not Naismith, he's the coach at
Roy Williams,
North Carolina. Roy Williams, thank you. Yeah, you know who I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If he had stayed one more year, they were going to call it the Roy Williams Court.
Mm-hmm.
He was with us for 19 years. Not a single championship. Larry Brown the year before. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Self since then, a couple times. But
he had some amazing teams at Kansas, though.
Kirk
Heinrich, Nick Collison, all those guys.
Yeah, and I got to meet all those guys. I got to get autographs, and I was a total basketball geek. But it took
If I'm not
going through
mistaken, they
basketball.
lost in the championship one year.
Oh yeah, several years actually. But was it 2010 or 2013?
They had Jacques Vaughn.
Jacques Vaughn, yeah, and they went to France that year to play against professional French teams in the before season, and everybody thought it was the coolest thing that he was named Jacques Vaughn.
Yeah.
A really interesting thing. I'm a vegan, and I have been since 2007. And I became a vegetarian when I was either 15 or 16. I think when I was 15. And when he was playing, during the season, Jacques was a vegetarian because I guess his personal philosophy was that it slowed him down or something. Because, man, he shaved his head. That guy was aerodynamic,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he still is. He's just off my radar. But, it's growing up in a town with a storied history like KU is it's difficult to hate sports, and I'm also into soccer, specifically the Kansas City team. And a lot of it has to do with, where you live and who your local team is. You support the home team. But also they're just a really great team. Like right now, they're if they're not number one, they're number two. And they have been number one all year. Sporting Kansas City used to be the Kansas City Wizards. And I actually used to be the official photographer for the unofficial fan club, because if we stayed unofficial, then they couldn't tell us what to do. and that's the way that we both liked it. But we had like a MVP scarf that we'd award the player of the month, and so I'd get to go out on the pitch and take photos, and so my brother got me into that, and I am into soccer. And even though I realize that American soccer is just about the worst soccer there is out there, except for the women's national team. I've seen them play, and man, they are amazing. They've always been good, but those are the only two sports really that I pay any attention to. How we got here from paranormal experiences, I do not know.
You started talking basketball.
I intuited that you had the basketball genes. That's what it was.
Yes, that's it.
But so can you tell us about some other experiences that have happened to you that were really
The only other thing I
noteworthy?
could think of was it was summertime. I think I was maybe like 7 years old,
Mhm.
and I climbed. My dad had this really old truck. My dad had so many different vehicles over the years. He had this really old truck, and I got on top of the truck
Mhm.
and was just playing.
Right.
And I heard a voice. It said, "Be careful, Eddie."
Hmm.
And it was a voice I had never heard before. And my next door neighbor, she was in the garage working.
Hmm.
And I walked over there. I said, "Did you hear that?" And she goes, "Uh-uh." And I went in my house, and my dad and my brother were watching something on television.
Hmm.
And I said, "Did one of y'all tell me to be careful?" And they looked at me like, "No, what are you talking about?" And they asked me. I was like, "I was on top of Dad's truck, and I heard a voice say, 'Be careful, Eddie.'" And my dad said, "Maybe it was an angel." And it was just the craziest thing, because if the voice had been like my voice, I definitely would have, if it had been my own head,
Sure.
but it wasn't my voice.
Hmm.
It was a totally different manly voice.
Did
And
it sound like an older man?
no, not to my recollection.
Because
But-
I'll tell you, when I was 6 years old, my dad was born in Israel, except back then it was called Palestine. But he fought in 1948 in the War of Independence against the British Mandate. And when I was 6, he took the family over because my grandmother, his mother, was dying. She was in a hospital, and I knew what she looked like. I knew what both my grandfather and my grandmother looked like, and I'd never seen either of them. I'd never seen photos of them.
Mhm.
We didn't have them around the house or anything, but I instantly recognized both of them, and that's why I asked if it was an older voice, thinking maybe it was a grandfather. Or,
That might be some of that giftedness that you have.
yeah. Boy, if you knew the half of it.
I think that you probably have an ability to pick up real fast whether you think somebody's like how we say in the South, that someone's good people.
Mhm.
I think you could pick up on that pretty quickly.
I do, actually. I do. And if you knew the half of it, you probably wouldn't associate with me anymore.
I totally get it.
I'm a good judge of character, but boy, when I see someone that is bad news like that, I know,
Yeah.
and I just stay away from them. Man, boy, could I tell you stories? And we will. We'll have a special Echo-based network, Cardinal send Paranormal
Absolutely.
into the
What was that
Fringe.
movie with Bruce Willis? He would touch them and he would know.
Unless it's Unbreakable.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
He knew, like had visions of the bad things that they did, and then he'd go take them out. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Well, bro, I enjoyed being here. This
Oh,
is
me
this
too.
is
I
my
enjoyed
bro.
having you, and
This is
I'm
stuff I
really looking
haven't been able
forward
to talk about.
having you guys back on and maybe making a regular thing of it. Like I said,
Absolutely.
unless I end up, you know, uh, making you guys run screaming.
Nah, we'd be glad to come on anytime.
I've had so many just outright weird experiences. I probably should write a book.
Do it.
I researched a book about Kansas ghosts for 10 years, and that was before, you know, the internet was what it is today. I mean, there was a World Wide Web, but it wasn't as. I mean, the website that I programmed for it was an HTML4, so I literally programmed it, you know, without an editor or anything.
Right.
And I knew that I couldn't crisscross the state, and so I set up associate researcher positions. And everybody wanted to be an associate researcher, but they didn't want to do any work. So that kind of put the plug in that jug. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on, especially at reverse notice.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Anytime.
And I'm looking forward to having you guys back. I really was looking forward to popping on in the stream last night, but I hadn't slept in like a day and a half. Finally got some sleep, and I knew when I got downstairs that my computer was going to have problems, and we'll find out here in a little bit exactly how serious those problems are.
All right.
But you guys have an open invitation anytime.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. We'll take you up on it.
And I had a really good time listening to your stories, and can't wait for the next one.
Awesome, man. Me too.
All right.
Thank you, brother. This is
Thank
going to be
you.
great.